Hey there, what's up? This is Neil Napier, the Stoic Entrepreneur. And over the last 15 years or so, I have built a business that's generated about $15 million or so in sales. And I wanted to do this video to basically talk about my origin story, how I got started, how I got to the place where I built out an online business that serves my needs of both time and financial freedom. Now, let me start by telling you that I come from middle class family. We never had any entrepreneurial inclination drilled into us as we're growing up. Like starting a business was far from what we would normally do. It was expected, in fact, till quite late for me, that I would go ahead and start out, work in a job, basically, work in a job 9 to 5, secure something so that someone else would pay me a living wage. And that was always the plan. That was always something that was drilled into me. And I want to talk about how I got pushed into a path where I had to make my own money. I had to basically make ends meet and figure out how it is I'm going to do, which is make money online. So let me take you back to 2008, actually. 2008 is a good starting point. I had finished university and I had started working for a company based out of Birmingham, UK. I finished my university in Bristol and I'd moved to Birmingham, UK to start a new job, and I was doing software development. Now, this wasn't web development, which is primarily what our company does at the moment, like SaaS apps and web dev. This was basically database management stuff that you would do for banks. So 2008, which is, I know, a weird time to start working for a bank, right? Because that was the big recession. But 2008, I started doing software development in terms of database management for banks. And it was a steady job. Like it was a decent job. I had a really good manager who was very helpful. He would teach me things. I learned a lot on the job and it was exceptional. The problem, of course, was that I was in an industry that had been hit by recession quite badly because everything that happened in 2008, a lot of people were losing jobs. A lot of my friends who started with me actually were offered jobs in the bank as a trader, as an investment banker, or whatnot. They didn't even get to have their day one because the job was cancelled before the summer was over. So luckily, I managed to work for a couple of years, but I remember this quite vividly. My manager told me that basically they're going to be firing people because they're running out of money and they need to sort of secure a runway for a longer period of time. And they said they haven't decided who was going to get fired, but they will let us know. Now, I had a feeling that I would get fired. There were 3 graduates that started together, 3 of us, and I wasn't the best performing, I'll say that. And I didn't check some quotas, I'd say. So I knew that I'd be one of the first to go. So out of an office of about 60 people, they fired 12 people. So they literally let 20% of the people go. Even some of the more senior ones, some of the ones that I thought had a job for life there. You know, people have been working there for like 15 years, 20 years, and they were still relatively young because they started young. But I thought they'd have a job forever, and even they were let go. So I remember this because at that time, my girlfriend was visiting me. We were dating. She was in Finland. I was in England, and she was visiting. And she was just at the apartment basically when I went to work in the morning. I went to work and they basically called me. And, you know, if they call you, they want to kind of discuss what's going to happen next. So they called me in. And this was like still 9:15 in the morning. I just started work at like 8:30. So they called me in and they said we've evaluated everything, and based on kind of how many jobs you have to let go, how much money you have to save, how much you've contributed, everything, we'll have to terminate your contract. Now, we will give you a 4-month notice, but we can't keep you here all the time because of IT restrictions and whatnot. So you have a week basically to finish up your tasks and then you have to go, but we'll give you a salary for the next 4 months, which by the way was fantastic that I could get that. Severance pay, I guess you could call it. So I kept a brave face. I said, I understand. Thank you for letting me know. Went back to my seat. But I felt uncomfortable. I felt this kind of emotions bubbling up. And almost in tears, with kind of, not really in tears, but with my eyes swelling up with water, I go back to my line manager and said, do you mind if I take the day off today? Like, I'm sorry, I don't think I can work today. He said, of course. I went back home went back to my apartment, which was like a short 10 minutes walk away. I had some time to think, not really, but had some time to dwell on it. And I get back to the apartment, I open the door, and my girlfriend's kind of surprised to see me. She's like, "Okay, why are you back early?" And I start bawling my eyes out. I was 24 at that time. Let me calculate again. I was 24 at that time. So I start bawling my eyes out. I'm crying like a baby. I didn't expect that being fired would define me. It did. And at that moment, all the expectations, all the things about, hey, you got to have a job, because a job is steady, a job kind of keeps you in place. And my parents have told me often that, hey, you should just like look to switch jobs already because you don't get too comfortable in one place because you don't really owe them anything. I was like, no, I like them. They like me. It's all good. So I got fired and I cried like a baby. And I held her, put my head on her shoulders, and I just cried for like a good half an hour. Not my finest hour, but again, it had to be done. I had to let those emotions out. So it was fine. Now, my big problem with that was not just the loss of a job, but just a couple months prior to that, the UK had changed some rules on how they issue visas. So I was in a graduate visa, which meant for 2 years I could hold down a job. And then, based on my income that I had made. So if I had made, this was the thing, their income levels were at £19,000 a year. If you're making £19,000 a year, then you could basically apply for a visa renewal. Like once the 2 year graduate period ends, you can apply for a 4 or 5 year work permit, like work permit based on like work done sort of thing. So you can apply that even if you don't have a job, like you can basically look for a job. It was quite generous, I'll say, but of course the expectation was that you'll find a job. There's no like you can't go on the dole, you can't get benefits, as it were. But I was happy because I was like, if I had that, I can apply for any jobs after that, right? So that was pretty good. Now, the problem was that just 2 months prior, UK had changed the rules. So from £19,000 income, they had raised that to £30,000. I was getting £24,000 a year. So suddenly I was short by £6,000, right? Suddenly I was short by £6,000 because what do you do? And there weren't really a lot of options for me. I'll say this, and then I don't know if my folks are watching this now, but ashamedly, I had even tried to convince my then girlfriend, like, hey, let's get married because she was Finnish, she was European. I was like, if we get married, I can stay here longer term with you, which is what I wanted. I wanted to be with her, I wanted to have a job, wanted to be the provider. And I thought, hey, that way we can kind of check all the boxes. So I even tried for that in desperation, I'll say. Not a good move in hindsight. And then the other option was, of course, that I find another job quickly, which pays me not 24, but actually 36, because I had to make in the last 12 months a salary of £30,000 because of the rule that they had suddenly changed. So that wasn't easy. That didn't happen, unfortunately, either. I did try, but I just couldn't kind of make that happen for me. Then I got into freelancing and I thought, hey, if I do freelancing on the side, like in those like 6 months I had left on my visa still, maybe I can make enough money to kind of make ends meet. And that's what I started doing. So I started freelancing. I started going on back then. Freelancer and Upwork was not a thing. There was one before that, Elancer, I think it was called. So I started finding like writing jobs on that because I was good at writing, and I did a bit of writing work to make some money. And to be honest, the first job was a bit crap. Like I was getting paid about $4 an hour by this Australian communications company CEO. I would do his presentations for him. He would kind of give me notes and I'd prepare the whole thing. There wasn't even Google Slides back then, so PowerPoint. And I mean, I'd go to, in the first week that I got that, I would go to work and then I'd come back home and I'd work from like 9 p.m. to about 3 a.m. in the morning. Of course, once I didn't have work, I could work during the daytime as well, but I had to be up at night in the UK so I could communicate with him. He was in Australia. So I'd work nights mostly. Luckily, in that time, I had also joined a men's mastermind group. So we were kind of talking about, supporting each other, issues that men face, and there was a lot of camaraderie there. So they pushed me also into the freelancing world, pushed me into trying out new things, to try out something new that would basically allow me to make an income. So it worked, but not enough so that I could renew my visa, which meant that unfortunately I had to leave the country. Now I'll cover that in another video about that, but all this did give me a head start so that I had the motivation, I had the discipline to kind of do things for myself. I mean, look, I was in a position where I lost a very comfortable job. I mean, it wasn't great money, but it was good money for someone my age. I had the humiliation of walking out of the office crying. I had the humiliation of being comforted by my girlfriend. I mean, it's not a humiliation, of course, it's fine. It's what it was back then, but I felt the desperation of like wanting to get married just so I could stay in the country, or being financially just being very uncomfortable. You know, I had not a lot of money to my name because at that age, you just basically spend everything you get. That's what you do. So I found myself in a position where I had no money, where I had no future prospect at that time. I had, dropped a lot of my dignity along the way, and I was kind of wondering what next. Like, what can I do? It was, I felt, for me, rock bottom, right? At least in terms of my career and everything, it felt it was rock bottom. But again, for me in my life, anytime I've had these rock bottom situations, from then on, I have gone on to do bigger and better things. I'm the kind of person who needs to almost be pushed into a corner before he kind of rises up like a phoenix and basically makes something new, something big of himself. That's me anyway. So that's my story. I mean, I'll tell you this. After that, I moved to Finland, but that wasn't without much fight either. I'll cover that in the next video. I'll talk about that another time. But yeah, life's been interesting since 2010.